Hola, amigos, and welcome back to another episode of La Vida Verde podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Human, here at Finca Vida Verde. Today is our very first ever part 2 episode with Carlotta Rinaldi. She is a conscious mother of 3, a family therapist. She's passionate about astrology. Hopefully, you've seen the part 1. It's brilliant, and we got a lot of great comments. And it's going to be a really great conversation. We're going to delve into more motherhood and also some community issues. I hope you enjoy. Carlotta Rinaldi, welcome back to La Vida Verde podcast.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. This is our first part 2. The last time we had you on was like this. We realized like getting into the discussion of conscious motherhood. There's so much.
There is so much. I mean, I could go on. It's a lifetime for a lifetime.
Yeah,
really.
Like literally.
It's a lifetime learning.
It is a lifetime.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then there was like we were getting done and we're like there's so much more we want to talk about.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we kind of last time I guess we touched on like, raise you have 3 children, 2 of them were home births.
Yes.
And one of them was a hospital birth. So I thought maybe we could start with that, like the difference, and then we'll get into like parenting and all that later too. But
for sure. So Nory, who's now almost 3,
who I love, by the way.
he was born in England. And basically what happened was that around 36 weeks, I was planning the same as like home birth, like Dahlia. And I, was in the NHS, which is a free, the national healthcare system, which was free, supported throughout. And then around 36 weeks, they found that I had some extra liquid in my bump. It's a specific condition. And so they said, oh, you need to go for extra exams at the hospital.
You were planning to have a home birth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so they sent me to the hospital to do some extra exams. And then because I started becoming part of the system. Because once you're in the hospital, you see a consultant there who is like, a gynecologist. And so he basically called me in and said, oh, we're going to look at, at the result of these exams together. You don't have anything, to worry about. But we're going to now do measurements of the baby to see, how he's growing. And all of a sudden, he said, oh, your baby's too big. Your baby is, huge compared to norm. And I know you birthed a big baby last time, but
kill this mosquito.
There's a mosquito.
Sorry.
And it's going to be too big. You're not going to be able to birth it. And it started putting worry in my mind. Like, you're going to have all these complications if you choose to have a home birth. And the reality was that actually he was exactly the same dimension as my daughter, as Dahlia. He was exactly the same. I mean, yes, I birthed big babies. Dahlia was like 4.4 kilos, which is almost 10 pounds.
Wow.
And Nory, yeah.
It's pretty big for a baby.
Yeah, it's really big. And Nory was basically going towards that. And
what is the average? Like,
that's the thing. There is no average.
Right.
Like whatever is right for you, you have whatever, size is right for your body. Mm-hmm. And nature knows best.
Right.
And for the doctor, for the standardized, medical system to tell you, oh, you're not going to be able to do this. Because, in theory, he's too big. But how do you know? Because my body was able to do it before. So I'm sure I'll be able to do it again. But the fear that this doctor put onto me, I think he started monitoring me and he asked me to go back. So once you go back, then, 38 weeks. And then all of a sudden, he kept on stressing the message that I was risking my life and risking the baby's life. And so
it's scary when you're like,
it's really hard to stay.
It's scary, like you could die. They're
exactly.
telling you, like,
yes. And so I decided to, to do the best I could with the information I had. And so I waited as much as I could until about 40 weeks. When I was about 40 weeks, I decided, like, I'll make the best environment I can in the hospital to make the most home birth-like experience in the hospital. And I want to make sure, actually, that the message here is clear, is that, it's beautiful. It's equally beautiful to birth in a hospital, but I think it's it's the energy you create and the people you surround yourself in that hospital that really matters, and your mindset. So I made sure that I had like little fairy lights in the room, and I had nice candles, and I had beautiful playlists that we made with Ollie of our favorite music, and I still used hypnobirthing. And and I was, fortunate enough to again be able to have a natural birth without complications. So
It's just that the only difference is you were in a hospital and you had to do a little more work to make it homey.
Yes, but I was
And beeping machines.
I was lucky that in England, again, the hospitals, they kind of do still promote natural births, because in some countries like here in Costa Rica, I did a lot of research before having Leilani, and I was thinking maybe I could have her in a hospital the same way that I had Nory. And unfortunately, like the C-section rate that the doctors kind of promote here in Costa Rica is much higher than in other countries such as England. So basically it means that you go into a hospital and you want to do it your way, but because the doctors already have,
they're used to doing cesareans.
They kind of like lead you.
Right.
They lead you. And so it's very subtle, but at the same time, in that moment, like when you're in labor, it's like whomever is around you influences you, especially doctors.
Yeah.
Midwife, but a doctor that you in your mind think, oh, he knows best, because you've been programmed for years and years and generations to think that doctors are the way to have, that they're the only ones that can birth a child.
Why do you think here in Costa Rica they're more inclined towards cesareans than?
I think it's
in
about,
England?
to be honest, I think it's about education, and I think there's just a lot of, like, I think the system in England is actually, it's really forward. There's a lot of really trained and educated professionals that have learned actually that natural birth, like I think it's just it's a different level of education. Right. There's a lot of amazing doctors and midwives here too.
Right.
But I think we're just talking about a minority here. But I think it's gonna improve for sure. The midwives I worked with, like some of midwives that I met, are incredibly, in tune and supportive and, beautiful with home births and also with natural births.
So that's right. So basically the takeaway is it's not so much about where.
Yeah.
It's about, there's more factors involved. How, who.
The mindset and the environment, and all the work you do prior to the labor it's a marathon, and you have to train. You have to train your brain from the moment you're pregnant, or even from years before.
Right.
Let's actually
get yourself ready.
Start now. If you're in your early 20s and you're thinking, in my 30s when I have, babies, like start now. Start now reading and learning. And there's an amazing friend of mine called Marion that she has done a lot of work in this field, and she has written a book, Change the Way We Birth on Earth, and also has a play where she educates. This is what she's doing.
I love her play. I saw it.
Beautiful play.
She did it in Ecovia.
Yeah, you came.
I was
She
there.
had a couple. She had it twice, and I was both times there. And she's basically gathering women from all over the world, and she's doing, literally this, journey all over the world. She's going to Canada, soon she's gonna be in the US, and she's doing these plays. I mean, eventually she's going to be on Broadway. Her show
no, the play is amazing.
is gonna
The
be on
show
Broadway.
is it's powerful. What's the name of it?
Change the Way We Birth
Change
on
the Way
Earth.
We Birth on Earth. People go search that if you're interested in this topic.
Yeah.
Marion.
Yeah, so Marion Rose is her Instagram, and she is unbelievable.
We'll have her on the show one day.
You will.
When she's back.
Yes.
Okay, great. So you've got 3 children.
Yeah.
Now you've had all 3 children.
Yeah.
You've told us the stories of how you've had the 3 children.
Yeah.
Now what's life like now? What happens after they're born? That's what I'm curious. Like, how does?
Yeah. So it's interesting that today I've come here because
Was there meltdowns happening?
there's been a lot. There's been a lot. I mean, tomorrow is the new moon. Apparently, the last session I done with Kai Pacha's astrologer, who has a beautiful cacao farm in Puerto Viejo, she told me the 14th of October will be a big date for me. The 14th, between the 14th and the 18th. Tomorrow is the 14th.
Yeah, it's eclipse. It's also the eclipse.
Yeah, and my ascendant is Libra, and my sun is Scorpio. So we're obviously in Libra right now. And apparently Libra and Aries, which are opposites, which are actually our ascendant, my husband and I, we have opposite ascendants. So he's Aries, I'm Libra. So we're pulling each other, and we are very much like there's so much learning to be done between the two of us. But the reason why I'm mentioning that is that right now, this past week, is the South Node. I think the moon's north and south modes are something like opposites. Aries, Libra. There's like a big energy shift. And long story short, I think it's been the hardest parenting week for me.
Between you and Ollie?
Me and Ollie, me and the kids. Yeah, it all. But so I guess we can start with how we became.
It's obviously there's a lot to discuss, but yeah, just in tips how do you live your how do you wake up? You're in full service to these kids. You just have to give yourself to them, right?
So,
or do you reserve a little bit for yourself, or how does that?
So I used to do a lot of Kundalini. Kundalini yoga and meditation before the kids were born. And when Dahlia was born, I thought to myself, I need to continue. I need to cut myself this space every morning to meditate. And then it started becoming quite difficult because Dahlia would wake up at 5 a.m. and I didn't want to wake up before 5 a.m. to meditate. So it's already early enough. And
don't Kundalinis wake up at 4 a.m.?
Yeah,
Isn't that the time
4:30 sunrise,
right.
Depending on where you are, because in the UK the sun.
It's sunrise.
Yeah,
I got it. Okay.
And I obviously it was a slow learning lesson, and I'm still learning it. But I started realizing, especially with Nory and now Leilani, my kids are my meditation. My kids are teaching me the raw of what it means and what it takes to stay present, to stay in the moment, to watch emotional, clouds, I call them, come in and not let these emotional waves, and which are not just waves, they feel like storms, take you.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to create that distance between you, and whatever is happening in that moment.
Yeah.
With the children. I used to teach this as part of my therapy, to young people.
Uh-huh.
Mostly teenagers.
How not to get affected by
exactly
external forces.
To watch these thoughts as clouds coming and going. It's like the traffic, cars driving by.
But now the clouds are your children.
And now they're
their
and
energy.
they're all the time. All the time. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. It's a constant practice. It's you can't escape it. Some days I wake up and some days are easier than others. And some days I wake up and I feel like I'm in a cage. Like I feel like I'm in a cage, like in a prison. Like I am forced to experience. I'm forced to watch and to be a part of these spirals, and I can't. There's no way to get away. Like you can get away physically for a few hours, maybe for a weekend.
You're here right now, which is
amazing being here.
Where are they now?
So there, two of them are in school. One of them is with their dad.
Okay, thank you, Oli.
Yeah. And so yeah, you can get away for a few hours or a weekend. You know, Oli and I have taken, maybe a couple times a weekend away, but it's only temporary. And the reality is that how to train yourself to surrender to what is. Like they are my yoga, they're constantly teaching me, come back to the present, come back to the present. Don't attach to the expectation of what you want them to be. Like you have these ideas because you're, especially like us that we read so much, we research so much, we're in this beautiful community with lots of mindful people. And so you have these expectations of what you want your household and your family to look like, of what you want your school, which is a huge topic at the moment for us here in Ecovia. What you want your school to look like, what you want your kids to act like, how you want them to, compassion, you want them to be compassionate, you want them to be all these things. And then you bump your head. You're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's like, it's a strong...
Yeah, because they're going to be who they're going to be, and you have no control over that. Or little control. You have a little guidance you can guide.
And actually, the more control, the more they resist it. The more, like strength and too much authority and controlling behavior, the more they're like, they teach you. They like
fight against it.
Yeah.
So there was this one, I don't want to say who, but let's just say, like, in our community, two of the most beautiful, calm, sweetest people, you may be able to figure this out, the sweetest, I mean, the calmest, the most gentle people, and everyone was like, I remember when we found out they were pregnant, we're like, somebody in our community was like, their child is going to be like the Messiah. Are you kidding me? Like, these people are like the most amazing people. And there was a time where their child was like the hellion of the community. We were like, how did that, like, like violent and, going through, it was a phase, fortunately. The kid is now, in his teens, and he's an amazingly beautiful, present soul and a good kid, a good guy, thankfully. But there was a time where it's just like, and it does, of course, it must, like, it reflects on you as a parent. You're
absolutely.
like, they're like, what are the parents doing? It's like, but there's no way.
But that's the thing, is that you identify, your ego is identifying there with how your children become an object. They become, an extension of yourself. And so they represent you. And so in your mind, right? And so, anything they do, anything they say, you start resenting, you start becoming, ashamed, or, of, other people perceiving you a certain way based on how they are. And it's like, it's this cycle that never ends. And it's really, really hard to pull yourself out of it because it's constant. And it's like, it's exactly what yoga talks about. It's exactly what, like, I always thought in the past, like, when I started meditating, my early 20s, and I would learn about the monks, like, and I wanted to, like, go and have an experience I wanted to go to India and have an experience there. And I thought, like, now I'm again understanding that it's easy. Like, it's easy to meditate in the ideal conditions.
Right.
And to go in a quiet room,
right,
and watch your thoughts and create that mental space. It's easy to do that in those conditions.
Much harder to do when there's sirens in the
this
background and children screaming.
this
And
is where we need to grow.
yeah,
We need to accept, we need to surrender more, and just learn to just be, and stop like thinking so much about the shoulds
right.
and about, you know, the future. And yeah, I think
I love this. I love this conversation, and thank you. This is a good reflection for all of us. I mean, you're right, and I'm thinking like I'm like, wow, Carlotta, you really could have your own podcast. I really think you should consider like having like a family therapy. I mean, there's so much to this, and I
yeah.
know we're not going to be able to get through all of it in the next 15 minutes, but like that's a really powerful and beautiful perspective. So
I mean, there's a lot of crying, there's a lot of suffering that you can't, you know, the pain is part of it. You know, you wouldn't be able to. I so wish, in a way, I wished we could learn and grow without this level of, you know, pain and sometimes trauma. Like, you know, for some of us, they have to go through trauma to understand, you know, how to stay close to the children, how to, you know, I've gone through it. Some really close friends of mine have gone through it. But it's the only way. Like you have to go through the pain in order to, you know, understand. You have to experience in order, you know, to really, you know.
yeah, this is like as from my own perspective, like I've always desired children. It's something I've always
Yeah.
thought I would be a father, and
Yeah.
I'm 42. I have
You do have time.
I
You
still have time, but I also have to accept the fact that like I may not meet the right woman or something. I'm at the point of that. But anyways, point being, like there is definitely a part of me that is like I'm at that age where I'm like, because I meet a lot of women who don't want children.
Yeah.
And it's usually for me that's like well, it may not work. Like that's usually a kind of a not a red it's a deal breaker, because at some point I can see that I'm gonna want children, and I start thinking about this and I see other parents and I'm like, wow, could I really do this? Like, but I think what I'm hearing you say is like, and I think the kind of what I kind of my perspective on it is like, you're never really ready. You can't prepare yourself. You just it's not about being ready. It's about being able to just go with it and do it.
I would say there, like, no, for sure, I agree with you. I think there are some factors that you can influence, that you can kind of make happen, that would make a right environment for kids to come into this world.
Sure.
And one of these factors is having like real, you know what I'm going to say, having real community.
I was going to say, this is perfect.
But what I mean by real is that it's such a big subject for us here in this area of Costa Rica. And
what does real community look like to you?
Real community means friends, and friends that are actually interested in, you know, sharing with an open heart, and, you know, open their doors to like helping one another, living together, cooking together, teaching the kids together, educating the kids together, growing together. That, you know, sort of have that desire to create, you know, and not have like that sort of like, oh, this is my home, this is my space, like I am, you know, it's a private space. It's more like open door policy. And also actually there for you, like when you're struggling, actually there for you, like to, you know, physically, you know, everyone can do different things. Like some people maybe can be there for you physically, like supporting, you know,
excuse me,
supporting, like
it's a truth sneeze. That was a truth sneeze.
I like that.
Yeah, physically, when you need help.
But like, you know, and some others have the role of emotional, like mental health support. Others can have the role of like providing food when you're sick.
Right.
And when, you know, your kids, like you cannot cook for your kids. Others have the role of like, you know, being the doctors, the health advocates. We're definitely building that in Ecovia.
Right.
You know, everyone just opening their scales, and together you creating like a web of relationships that is like that, you know, is the village that raises the children type of attitude. But yeah, with you know, with an open, you know, an open heart, you know, it's
Why? That's a qualifier. What's the qualifier of the open? I mean, I'm curious. Like, what did the way you said that says to
yeah.
me? Like, there's a reason you added that with an open heart. Like, what is that? What's the difference?
Well, I think it's not doing it because you're expected to do it, but doing it, giving because you want to give is different than giving expecting to receive
Of course.
and like to receive back. And I think
Mm.
like I've seen that here, like I've now understood what it means. And also, I think from a Buddhist perspective, like the understanding that, you know, whatever you are like giving out, it doesn't matter who you give to, it's actually, it's gonna come back to you. It's karma, you
Karma.
know, and it's going to come back. And so that's what I mean about, you know, just contributing if you want to contribute without thinking, okay, if I'm gonna, it's a it's kind of like a gift economy. Charles Eisenstein was talking about this when he came to Ecovia, you know, a few months ago. But it's not like as related to like, okay, I'm gonna let you, for example, use my car to go get groceries, and in return, I'm gonna expect you to, I don't know, let my mom stay in your extra bedroom.
It's not like a what's in it for me.
No.
It's you give because you want to give.
That's how, like, if everybody was doing that, if we were all more like selfless, less, you know, just more selfless in the giving, I think that's one of the recipes for like a successful like village and a successful place for kids to come into this world. And I have to say, like, I was mind blown by the amount of like beautiful giving that I received when I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I had a beautiful ceremony, like a baby blessing, by like 12 of my close friends in Ecovia. And also when Leilani was born, like everyone, you know, all my close friends, I brought something to help, like food or, you know, some things that she needed.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do have the seeds for it here. And I think it's, you know, we're in the right place.
Well, you and maybe this is like comes in. You as a psychologist can help. Can understand. Like I'll just use be honest with myself. It's like I think in the past I was much more like give it all away, but I think I felt taken advantage of a lot, and that's why I have like I am a little more um transactional away in some, not all the time. I definitely see myself as a giver, and it depends on the person, depends on the thing, but like, and also when you're, um, like I'm kind of a more public in this community.
Yeah.
So it's not like I have like people, I get a lot more people coming to me. And if
Yeah.
I said yes to everybody, or if I gave what everything I could to everybody, I don't believe that it's always, I haven't always felt like it always comes back.
But I'll tell you, I think what I hear when you're telling me this, I can hear that that there was a level of disappointment, right? There's a level of disappointment with not having received as much when you were giving. Do you feel like
At some, I mean, I'm not talking about any one thing in particular. I'm just saying like, um, yeah, like I there's been multiple times like in just throughout my life where like one time I used to be very free with my car. Like, yeah, go take my car. But then the car breaks and the person
and
who
they don't?
broke it isn't there to pay for it, and I don't have the money to pay for
I
it.
know, I know.
So what do you do?
So for me, it's I went through this actually this thinking in the last few days, in terms of, I think for yourself, like you need to first of all, like be able to have the right boundaries. So you have to create and be aware and mindful of what those boundaries are,
Sure.
and reflect on, you know, your mental health and your, you know, you know, your ability to give is given by, you know, it depends on each person, and also you have to be aware of how much too much, how much too much is, you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
for sure.
And be also very much like, if you tune in, I often do it, I use my body as a pendulum, where
Like
I
physically, you hang on something and like swing back and forth.
I
I
I
like this
I
meta. This idea of the meta.
that's how you were thinking it.
Yeah, like
You could listen. Some people have a hard time with using the body as a pendulum and use the actual pendulum,
sure.
but I like just,
How does it feel?
so you're literally, you're meditating and you're trying to come to this, you know, peaceful place in your mind, and you close your eyes and you ask yourself, you know, you ask yourself the first, you ask yourself some obvious yes or no questions to see where your body goes, so that you know that if you're doing this, it's a yes, if you're doing that, it's a no,
Sure.
or the opposite.
Uh-huh.
So in terms of giving, it's like if you really tune in, you know, you always know, like
Right.
your heart and your unconscious, like, is so aware. It's just that most of us, we're in this rat race and we're constantly going and going, and we're not actually hearing, you know, ourselves. And but if you tune in, you can really tell, is this, what is this person's intention in asking me this?
Mm-hmm.
How do I really feel about saying yes or saying no?
Right.
Because it's so easy to fall into the trap of, I want to please,
Sure.
I want to help, I
Exactly.
want to do good, and I want to be perceived as well as good. That's why most of the times, you know, we say yes. And imagine here in this place where we're living, where there's so many of us watching all the time. Imagine here, it's even harder. I think we're even tested even more, because we're living in close contact in a place that, you know, wants to be perceived as, you know, one of the most mindful communities in the world.
Yeah.
So in this place is even more imperative to really listen to yourself, and, you know, tune in,
Have boundaries.
create those healthy boundaries,
Yeah.
and understand, like, you know, who am I engaging with, who am I giving, you know, the attention to, and put protections, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because I think if you don't put these protections, both physically, like giving a car, but also mentally helping, supporting, if you don't,
Mm.
then you end up basically getting, you know, sucked into somebody else's, um, you know,
Sure.
cycles, and also auric field, and chaotic, whatever it is that that person is going through. And then you become, you know, you can't help anymore, because you're
Yeah, you're over
become
overdrawn,
overwhelmed.
overwhelmed,
And
overdrawn. But and you know, I think that's part of why being in community with people with like, you know, that are also givers and that are also like showing up. I mean, this is to get back to your point about like being in how helpful it is to be with people who are showing up and giving in that way because they want to, and being supportive of each other, and you know, not with I guess the transactional thing could be like, well, I watched your kid last. I know this as I know the importance of sleepovers and of play dates. I was helping raise a 4-year-old for a little while, and like it's like, wow.
yes, I remember. Yeah, last year.
No, no,
Oh
no, no,
no.
no, no.
Well,
Who?
you were quite present in someone's, like an ex-girlfriend's life that had like a 5-year-old at the time, 5, 6, maybe she was.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that
Yeah.
too. Yeah, no, but I wasn't so.
Yeah.
That's a. I mean, it was a couple. This was maybe 5 years ago,
Okay.
but yeah, like I was the the sole male kind of
Ah,
figure in
okay.
this kid. Well, he had a father, but he was not present around. So, anyways, I got to like be a parent, like play parent for a while, and I got to see like play dates are super crucial.
Yeah. I think like what I'd like to say, like, I know we're ending soon, and I think like probably the biggest lesson for me since I moved to Ecovia has been this one about relationships, and has been to basically understand and not attach to, which is kind of the same theme that I talked about in kids, right? So I said not attach to, the emotional wave and outbursts and whatever and it's the same thing in relationships, in a community, in a village, is not attached to the expectation of what you want, people around you to be. So you meet these new friends, you're full of expectation. Like, she's so beautiful, she has this, she's been so supportive of me, and then you start expecting more and more, and then you get disappointed because either it's meant, you're meant to get disappointed because no one can upkeep that level,
Right.
that you have projected in the very first moment,
Right. So
right?
it's more about how we project onto other people.
And so, really, for me, has been about grounding myself and really understanding, like, and working the most on my, on my core self and on my family first, and solidifying the conscious parenting, the conscious, way of being with my children and with my husband. So first of all, strengthening that and rooting, and seeing others, so the village, friends that are absolutely essential for the growth and the raising of my kids and myself, but seeing them as, in their seeing their gifts, and yet seeing their shadows, and accepting both, from a Gene Keys perspective that talks about the gift and the shadow, and just, allowing that to be, and not wanting them to be, the perfect friend, and just seeing like, this person has this gift that I need to just thank and be grateful for. And every person has their shadows. Every single person has their shadows, and not judge the shadow. See the shadow as, it's part of the gift. It's like a frequency. It's an energetic frequency. They could be stuck in the frequency of the shadow, or they could grow and reach the gift level. Most of us are in this our whole life. But so, yeah, relationships is, take what's the good, give what you want to give without the expectation of seeing something in return, but solidifying yourself and being aware of your boundaries and putting, having that protection,
Yeah.
So it's quite complex, but that's been my learning so far.
Well, we got into community dynamics a little bit here, so this
Yeah.
is good. I think our part 3 has to be with Ollie. The
Yeah.
male perspective of the Rinaldi of the what's his last name?
Lambeth. So we actually Rinaldi Lambeth. So our kids are Rinaldi Lambeth.
The Rinaldi Lambeth family.
Yes, I think you're right. I think you do need that, because we're I mean, he's a bit of a mother, to be honest, as well, and that's what we're here. We're kind of, I think it's really important nowadays to have both parents have a very relevant role in the raising of the kids, and Ollie has like a absolute equal key role. Like, he has a beautiful role, and he's been I couldn't do it without my partner.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to talk to him one way or another. So, Carlotta Rinaldi, part 2. We maybe need to have a part 5 and 6 if you don't start your own podcast, which I hope you do. Thank you so much again. And
I love being here.
Yeah, yeah, so much to share. This is La Vida Verde podcast. I'm the host, Matthew Human, here at Finca Vida Verde. You can watch us every Tuesday on YouTube at La Vida Verde podcast. You can listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Check us out on Facebook at Finca Vida Verde, Instagram, Finca Vida Verde, CR, Patreon. This thing costs money. We love your support. If this means a lot to you, please consider joining our Patreon, patreon.com/La Vida Verde podcast. We'll have Carlotta. Where can people reach you?
Yeah, on my Instagram, Carlotta Rinaldi. It could be also Carlotta Rinaldi Lambeth on Facebook. Yeah.
We'll put it on your little tag underneath your name. So
Cool.
It's been a real honor. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. We'll see you next time. Pura vida.